Hey, last time we saw ad stock, and this time I want to look at a similar concept called as the saturation. So similar to ad stock, the concept is very simple over here. So if you've looked at a few results, you'll see something like this, where you'll have spend on the axis and on the y-axis either. So in this video, we want to understand how to exactly read this, what are the different types of the saturation curves, and if you are using one of these open source packages or even getting some vendors or consultants build an model, what are the questions that we need in mind so that we get most out of. So let's jump in. So similar to what we did last time, we'll split this up into two simple categories. So let me make some room for myself over here. So the first category is immediate response, and the second category are channels that need critical mass. So if we just consider these two as our primary categories, then we can put all these different types of curves that we are going to see into these two buckets, and we'll go with the beginner version, which you can start with. And if you're an advanced practitioner, you can look at some of these advanced curves as well. And one important thing within the immediate response is the curves over here are concave, right? So that's the first thing to keep in mind. And on this channel that needs a bit more critical mass, here the curves that we consider usually are S-shaped. And we'll go through a few curves and plot them out and try to understand this bit better. But I just want to give you a very high level view of what to look at. And within here, we have few curves like the root curve, Michaelis-Menten, which we'll look at in a second as well. And on this side, have a few curves like the Hill curve or logistic, tan H, and so on. We have few of those. So all we have to know now is we have a few on the concave side, few on the S-shaped side, and we know when to use them. Channel that need immediate response over here or critical mass, right? So let's take a few examples and try to dig in deeper. So we'll start with a few of the very common ones that you'll come across in various open source or some algorithms. So first is the root that we just saw over here, and this we know is an immediate right channel search, where you know that the response is going to be really immediate in a couple of hours of running the ad. So that is where we want to use this saturation curve, which is the root curve. And let me plot this one here. So this looks something like this, and this is where, let's say, the channel saturates. And of course, let's populate our axis. So we have the spend on this axis, x-axis, and we have the response, the y-axis. So as you can see here, as you start spending, you'll get very quick response over here. So this is like quick response, but then it also rapidly saturates as well. So we can say quick gain plus slow down rapid. Now then there's one way or one additional way of looking at this. Let me plot that here, which is marginal return. So let me plot this here. So again, on the x-axis, we still have the spend, but on the y-axis now over here, we have the marginal return, which is nothing but ROI per dollar. And this looks something like this. So there's a rapid quick gains, and then it kind of rapidly slows down as well. I mean, you get the idea over here. So if you see here, as we start spending at really low spend, we kind of get really high ROI. And then as we keep on increasing our spend, the ROI that we get kind of increases as well. And then it plateaus at the point. So let's take like a practical example over here. So let's imagine we are a SaaS company and we're running some Google ads. So let's break this down. So let's say the first 10K that went, we got like 200 conversions, which is like dollar CAC. Now the next 10K that went, you only get 141 conversions, and the CAC has actually gone up to 71. So this is approximately 30% less efficient. And then you get the idea, even the next 10K that you spend, you might get even lesser number of conversions. Let's say we only get 115 over here, and our CAC has gone up 87 now. And this is where we see that channel is starting. So all you have to do or remember now with the root saturation curve is there's a quick increase and then a quick slowdown over here as well. Okay, hopefully that makes. Now let's look at one from the S-shaped side. Let's look at Hill saturation curve and understand what that's all about. So here, let's draw our spend and response as well. So we have the spend on x-axis over here, and the y-axis have the response. But this time we know this is like an S-shaped curve. Right? This goes like this, something like this. So top over there. Let's also draw the marginal returns, because that's a really neat way of understanding as well. So we still have spend on the x-axis, and on the y-axis now we have margin returns or ROI per dollar. So here you'll see something like this, where it takes some time to get the maximum ROI, and then it kind of drops drop this curve again. So let's again take an example over here. So good example over here is the channel where initial spend that you have very minimal impact, because you see here this section in our hill saturation curve, the response that we're getting from spending all this money over here isn't that great. So let's say 0 to 500k that spend over here, this has very minimal impact. But then maybe 500 to 2 million that you spend, let's say this is the 5 million 500k to 2 million range, and then here maybe the word of mouth is in because your TV adverts are really memorable and people remember it and talking about it. So this has a lot of impact. And then maybe 2 to 5 million, it kind of starts slow down now because we are hitting saturation, and anything above 5 million waste money. We've already hit ceiling of channel, and any more spend that you allocate to this channel is not going to bring back much ROI, because here in the marginal returns really not the best way to spend money because the returns aren't there. So hopefully that is making all the sense. So let's go back up top over here where we had two categories. So now you may have a good idea of the concave and the S-shaped, and where we have immediate response search channel where we got the immediate response and the curves in really quickly, and then the ones like critical mass is needed TV, where even if you start spending really low amounts, there's not much impact on returns, but as you keep spending more and more, it goes up. And then so let's look at a few of these other ones as well really quickly. We have logistic over here. Let's look at that one, which goes, it is still in the S-shaped category like hill saturation over here, but slightly different. So if I write in like over here, so let me just draw the response here. So we still have spend on the x-axis and response on the y-axis. So all we have to remember between the hill curve that we just saw up above here and the logistic saturation is that logistic saturation is a bit more uniform and symmetric, right? So maybe something like this. And if I draw the marginal ROI, you'll get the symmetry difference that I just mentioned. So here's the spend, here's the margin turns. So here you'll see a curve that looks something like this, a normal distribution, right? So you can think of many channels over here where initial spend, like even more than the hill saturation curve, has really no impact at all, but then suddenly there's some impact and then it all slows. So this can be social media, for example, might follow something like this, where initial spend is low, then the impact is low, and then as you start spending, there's explosive growth in this stage, and then end up. Or even a good example, alternative to this is content, where it takes a lot of time for you to build the content and for you to see returns, and then once it starts, critical mass is going to explode and have really cool growth. And so in the same category, the S shape, or where we need to hit some critical mass to get some kind of growth, we have one more that we can draw up here, which is called as tan H, also known as hyperbolic tangent. So this is similar to the logistic curve that we just saw, but this tan H can handle negative values well. So if you take programmatic display, for example, we could argue at very low spend, the performance is actually really bad and even negative, because for programmatic, you need a lot of data for optimization, and with that low spend, there is no optimization happening. So let's just draw this one out here. So this hyperbolic tangent looks really, but if we draw the marginal return, you'll see the S shape go here. So again, this is the spend on the x-axis. Here, top, we have the response, the y-axis, and the bottom chart, we have the margin returns. And finally, we go back K version where we have Michaelis-Menten. So if you're familiar with biochemistry, this Michaelis-Menten is used a lot over there, but we can use this in marketing over here, saturation curve. So this is Michaelis-Menten. Let me just draw this one up so that it makes more sense. So now, because this is in the same concave category as the root saturation curve that saw the first time, so we have something similar over here where we have rapid increase initially and then a slowdown as well at top here, which is saturation. And if I were to draw the margin turns, it looks something like this here, similar to what we saw in the root as well. So let's go back up to the two big categories that we had defined. So we know we have a few channels that give us the immediate response. We have channels that give response after we hit critical mass. So now you know they're concave and S-shaped, but when do we use what saturation curve? So let me give you a quick one. So with root and Michaelis-Menten, 80% of channels. So if you're a beginner just learning some of these concepts, stick to root and Michaelis-Menten for some of your saturation curves and fine. But if your media mix or marketing mix has like TV spend, out of home, radio, and so on, which often requires that critical mass, then just go for the hill saturation curve and that's good for you. Now, if you're a visual learner, I also have prepared a simple static document for you where we have all these curves that we just discussed along with the mathematical equation as well, so that you have that for reference. So if you want this guide, just put a comment saying saturation curves and I'll send that across to you. And until next